For help on 911 from last month's deadly shooting in the parking lot of a New Jersey shopping mall. Did it take longer for an ambulance to reach the victim than first had been reported? The victim's wife pleading for help, and you can hear her anguish screaming at a dispatcher, telling her the dispatcher was telling the woman that help had already arrived.
911, is this an emergency?
Yes, it's an emergency. I'm at this Thornhill Mall parking lot. My husband has been shot. They called the ambulance half an hour ago. Where is he?
They're on their way, ma'am. They're on their way.
Where?
They're on their way, ma'am.
Give me a time.
They're there. They're at the mall. They're at the mall. They're trying to get to you, ma'am. Ma'am, they're trying to get to you. Speak with the officer.
It is really tough to listen to. Turns out the ambulance had trouble reaching them because the entrance to the parking lot was too low. Is a lawsuit next? Keith Sullivan's a criminal defense attorney, and he's with me here in studio. And good morning to you. Is it a criminal case? Is it a civil case? Take that first.
Well, certainly a criminal case. I mean, listening to that 911, I have chills and gives you a pit in your stomach.
Yes.
That's just awful what she went through, and you knew what she was watching her loved one die right in front of her eyes. Brutal. So hopefully, in the criminal case, these guys are prosecuted and held accountable. Civilly, different story, and there's going to be two defendants here. First is the ambulance crew, and an ambulance service, just like our emergency response services here in New York City, the FDNY, the NYPD, they owe a duty to everybody. So the law is very clear across the country. Those emergency services owe a duty to everyone, therefore they owe a duty to no one.
Was the ambulance crew, were they employed by the town?
Here's the interesting point.
Were they volunteers?
The ambulance crew in this particular case was a volunteer ambulance crew. They're a non-for-profit. They owe less of a duty than a municipal city-owned
Well, can you sue? Can you
be.
sue them then on that basis?
Anybody can sue, right, Bill? But that case is not going to go anywhere. Where you have some liability is possibly on the shopping mall itself, and for two reasons. Number one, as you pointed out, there was a low overhang to get in, so emergency access vehicles had no way of getting in to the shopping mall parking garage. But beyond that, and that may or may not match the building code requirements. That's going to be interesting to find out if there is a building code violation for that low overhang. But here's where I think the liability is going to come down on the shopping mall. The statistics have shown that carjackings in that area spiked by the crime in the parking lot area. Carjackings had increased 400%.
Just be more specific. In the shopping mall, had they increased?
Yes, they
or,
had.
Or in the town itself?
Both, but the statistics are driven from the surrounding area as well. But the numbers showed that it was based upon the crime in the shopping mall area itself. So 400% increase in carjackings alone. If the family knew this, and as a shopping mall, you have two duties. One is to warn the people, and two is to make it safe.
But how would the shopping mall warn people? You put up a sign, you hand out leaflets,
you could put out
what do
a
you
press
do?
release, you could say, look, we're going to be proactive, we're putting out more police, we're putting out more security. That car that did the carjacking was driving around the mall. They have that on footage, passing available spots. So it wasn't looking for a parking spot in the parking garage. What were they doing? Why did security miss that?
One more question. Remember, you're a defense attorney in all this, too. Can you win a case if you're going to bring a charge that there was not a prompt response?
That's going to be very difficult, and I'll tell you why. Because in a civil suit, you need four things. You need a duty, which we addressed with the ambulance. They don't have it. You need a breach of that duty, and you need causation. Assuming that there was a duty, the causation. It's very difficult to say, medically speaking, that someone who is shot at point-blank range, like this poor gentleman was, would have lived if the ambulance response time was, say, 12 minutes as opposed to 30 minutes. That's going to be a real tough sell medically.
Well, this grieving wife, Jamie Friedland, that you hear her voice on that 911 call, she said it took about 30 minutes, and you can understand the grief and the shock that she was going through at the time. And the 911 dispatcher says it was 18 minutes, and I don't know in the end if that really amounts to anything. But your point regarding the shopping mall is something we'll keep an eye on, see whether or not that goes anywhere, if at all. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Keith Sullivan.